Now we're moving to site number 2 in this land evaluation exercise. I'm going to go through the site card in the same manner that I did the previous site. Then we'll go to the pit location and evaluate profile characteristics. Then we'll go out and look at the overall view of the site to look at the vegetation and the general conformation of it, and also to measure or evaluate slope. So with that introduction to site number 2, let's turn to our attention to the site card. Site number 2's intended use is the crop to be grown is a grazable pasture. So that means that the landowner wants to make this an area where animals are going to be grazed. Soil test information. We have 8 parts per million of phosphorus, 170 parts per million of potassium. Nitrogen for this location is said to be adequate. And soil pH has been measured at 6.8. Our annual precipitation at this location is 22 inches, and the original depth of our topsoil was 12 inches. This site is not prone to flooding or is never flooded, and that's all of the information that's given to us at this time on this site card. So remember, this information you'll need to utilize to complete the land evaluation scorecard, with the intended use for site number 2 being a grazable pasture. Now let's move to the pit location next to determine profile characteristics and soil texture. This is what the soil profile looks like for site number 2. I put this stake into the profile to indicate where we grade from the A or AP horizon into the B horizon again. So we should evaluate this as the depth of our current depth of our topsoil. Using my hand again, it appears that this is about 10 inches at this location. 8 plus about 2 more, so about approximately 10 to 11 inches. We'll say 10 inches of topsoil remaining at this particular location. I'm basing that separation of topsoil and subsoil again on the basis of the consistency of these soils. Now, we've got a good stand of native grass vegetation at this location, so the roots penetrate down to a depth of approximately 3 feet. We would expect this soil to be pretty permeable within this 3-foot depth because of this good roots formation and structure. It's always going to be looser and more permeable up here at the top because of the higher density of the root mass. And as we progress down, we see in this particular soil, we start to hit a much firmer consistence right in here, in and around where the stake is. So that was the basis for placing this here between the AP, the top of the subsoil, or excuse me, top of the surface soil horizon, versus where we gradate into the subsoil. This site is very mellow, and by mellow, I mean that as we progress down, we've got a little bit of alluviated clay here, which makes this firmer and consistent, but as we progress down, this soil is very easy to chip away or break away in the profile, indicating that we really don't have any compaction or permeability problems. So at this location, permeability should be based upon the textural class of the topsoil and or the subsoil. Now, if I were to take a textural sample out of right here, I'd grade a little bit higher in clay content than I would here or here, either one. I've already done textural analysis by feel at this location, and what I came up with basically here in the topsoil was a silt loam, and it gradates into also being a silt loam down here in the subsoil, indicating that we've got a lesser amount of clay, except for this one zone of alluviation right here, than we would say, for example, in a silty clay loam or a silty clay soil, which we'll be seeing at later pit sites today. No particular restrictions anywhere in the profile. You'll notice that we don't have that layer of rocks in here like we did at site number 1. So basically we have a very deep silt loam soil throughout the topsoil and subsoil at this location with no restrictions in the profile and no indication of a high water table or even a seasonably high water table at this location. So with that information, you should be able to complete topsoil textural grouping, subsoil textural grouping, permeability, depth of soil, based upon what we've just gone over here in the pit. I'm now located at the top end of the site number 2, where the grazable pasture is desired. Here in my left hand is a green flag stake. This is marking the upper right-hand boundary of this location. What I'm going to be doing is walking across the top of this site, so that you can see what type of vegetation and the general lay of the land is at this particular location. As I walk across here, I'm coming across the orange flag. We're going to be shooting a slope from the base of this location up to the top of this location to determine slope using the Abney level. Crossing over the pit site. Ending up at the far right-hand, upper right-hand corner of this location. So from this view, you should be able to tell that this site, comparable to the first one, is in a very good stand of perennial grass. Now I'm going to proceed down to the lower left-hand corner of the site. So from the location that you're currently viewing this site from, you've now seen the other three corners of the site. So evaluate all of the area within this site to determine the management practices, including vegetative and mechanical. I'm now placing the Abney level on top of the stake at the lower portion of this slope and shooting up to the orange flag stake that you saw earlier at the top of this slope. I'm shooting upslope, so I'm going to be turning the Abney level counterclockwise. My bubble is coming into the sight window. I'm lining it up with the line in my sight window. And I'm going to take it off and read the scale. At this particular location, I came up with a slope of 9%. So you should use a slope of 9% to evaluate land capability class and other characteristics at this location.